Someone comes to relax. Yes. So good morning. We will start the session with the how to make a good manuscript, how to prepare a good research paper. There are many issues when we have completed our lab work or we are preparing a review article. We have certain it's a problem how to design a paper, how to present our data, what are the projects of the journal, what are the styles of our writing. Sometimes English language is a concern for us. And even we have done a good work in our lab, sometimes we fail to present in the form of a review or something. So today we will discuss about this issue, how to prepare a good manuscript. And since all the participants have got list, we will start with some informal discussion. We want to hear from you whenever you are preparing a manuscript, what challenges or problems you are facing while writing a paper. Then we will have a presentation by Professor Murthy. Then after the second session, we will have an exercise. Like that we have planned this day. And in the afternoon session, in the afternoon means you can visit the library. If you may be familiar with the library facilities, but if you may not, we have a wonderful library facilities we have arranged. People are there, who will be waiting for you. You can visit them, interact with them, and see the facilities. Because in our library also you can access it from anywhere. Anywhere. All the days that the books are online, e-books are available, you have to register and you can access. So this facility you should use. There is a huge resource. This is today's program. So we will start from you actually. How do you think and how do you plan when you are writing a paper? Can somebody will start from you? You can say something. Yeah.
Good morning to one and all. Recently, through Swayam MOOC course, I did academic writing. It's a preliminary course to get exposure about different type of journal articles conducted by Professor Ajay Seemalti. And what he stressed to us is three important things. One is the challenge is better communication in English up to global standard, international standard. That's the problem, especially we South Indian, especially myself, I am concerned with, I face it. Second thing is, professor says that in the beginning phase of research, one has to prepare a review article, has to go through extensively the previously published national and international standard journals, and so that he may get an idea towards the path he has to travel, he or she has to travel. And then with the limitations of time and infrastructure available, experimental methods should be planned and to be proceeded further. This is what a little bit I learned from that course. And apart from that, he gave a lot of materials and objective test assignment like that. And I got exposed with one software, Pre-Post SEO, which checks plagiarism. The plagiarism is the main issue concerned with beginners like me in research.
Which software you using?
Pre-Post SEO I used.
Have you heard about Perlini?
I Authenticate, Turnitin, I heard, but they are paid softwares.
They are paid software. There are many software, but all the softwares are not giving you the correct idea.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you should use a good software to check the vandalism of your manuscript. Otherwise, the journals which are using the name of software, your vandalism reports, they there. Any other issue? Madam, Vandana, can you say something about preparing a manuscript? What problems you are facing, or what should be the main points, right? Preparing for a manuscript.
So when we are writing a review article, like we have to collect the data from different sites, like Science Direct, Elsevier, and then PubMed, and then this Springer. We have to collect the data, and we should have an hypothesis behind that, what we are going to plan and what we have to do. The second thing is like the major drawback is that some people's they are not open in the sites. Like we get only the abstracts. This is a major disadvantage when we are writing a paper.
So you need
Full length article, and they are all paid.
They are okay.
When we are writing a review article, we only get the idea what is behind that abstract, and then in case of research article, like when we are writing, we should have an in the foreign journals, like in case my study, like I have done work on anti-anxiety and antipsychotic models,
Okay.
and we are in India. There are many issues, like we have to go for approval for Animal Ethical Committee approval, and then we don't have much software. Like in case of foreign university, they are doing. So we don't have any resources actually, proper resources and proper instrument, you can say. So this is a major drawback when we want to do the work, but we don't have any facilities.
Regarding Poland paper, I wish to tell you, we have discussed the matter with the library of the university, and they are now taking the subscription of the Sanskrit Academy. You can access that. But it should be.
But they are not. Some journals are such.
Even
Yeah.
What I do, if I review a paper, since I am reviewing a lot of papers for NCTR, they will give the access for 1 month in Poland paper.
Yeah.
You can access the Poland articles for 1 month. That can be used if you are reviewing a paper of NCTR or you are in sense. I am using that quite a lot. Any other thing, whether you want to say something and from biology, then we want to hear from you.
I would just like to know the editor's perspective,
Okay.
how they want the paper from the authors, what they are trying to find out, what is the meaningful thing that is the most important for editors. So this perspective would guide us more, it would be more appropriate us. So just strike on those things, just keep in mind on those things, so that we don't waste our time in just finding out that what is the meaningful.
How do you select a journal? What is your criteria while preparing a manuscript?
While preparing a manuscript, it depends upon whether it's a research article or review article.
That's correct.
But as far as the review is, so most of the time it's a comprehensive idea. So to get a comprehensive idea, we select a particular search engine. Or for example, it's for PubMed or the Science Direct or Scopus. So we decide a particular time frame, and all the articles that falls in that category we first downloaded, and then we just try to screen those to get the desired information, where it is leading, what are new things that they are coming out of these papers. So try to rearrange them on different headings. This is something about the comprehensive. And about the critical articles, it depends upon the interaction between the students and the teacher. So they may decide upon one critical topic and search about that topic in a critical way.
In author guidelines, they are providing the scope of this, what you are going to publish. They let you know what is the scope of this journal and what kind of paper you are preparing, so you can check there. Like, this is my review article and this is going to publish and this or not.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That is very helpful when we have prepared the manuscript. When we have review article prepared, we can find out that which of particular journal this particular falls in. But for the basic understanding, for example, is innovation the most important thing?
Yes.
Is grammatical thing is the most important thing? Is a proper structured way of manuscript that is the most important thing? So, if the innovation is the most important thing, so I just want to know what is the most important thing that strikes the editor, that is more valuable, that makes the people acceptable. So, thereafter there may be communications between the editors and the authors that there will need be an improvement and etc. So, if the editor's perspective, we are able to get something that this is the focus area. This is the type of mind. This is something that you should keep in mind. This is something that is necessity of every article. This is so that we have that. We can develop that attitude.
Yeah, please.
So as a beginner, what I am feeling the most difficult part is while writing a paper is, suppose I have collected the data and I have just checked what are the outline of the paper, what is the format of the paper, is linking all the data properly and arranging it in a way so that it appeals the editor that the whole concept is clear. Because I may be sound stupid while I am asking this question, but I have collected everything. But at one time I feel that how I should organize it, that it should not be rejected. What is the first? How can I reduce the time interval between the rejection of my paper and sending it to the author? So I don't know whether my question is clear. It's just for the linking of all the data in a way that it just reduce my it should be appealing, because that may include the English writing also, the grammar also, the selection of subtopics also. So this is what I think.
How do you all deal with the question of scam journals? Do you really know how to find out whether a journal is scam or not? What's a scam journal? No idea.
Those journals that doesn't come under the SCI index. Those are
You can find them under the SI. They make all sorts of indices. They create their own indices. The most famous one is the Copernicus index. God knows what that is. But how do you find out whether a journal is actually acceptable or not?
Well, actually, a few days I had found one extension for the Google. That was a Lazy Scholar. So whenever I go search a particular article and it would lead to the particular journal, then Lazy Scholar it would screen out. That is this may be in I forgot the author who had published all the journals. That may be under this category. So on that basis they made this particular software. So that screen out the particular journal and they said that it may be predatory journals. So this was one of the criteria. And the rest is that all the journals that are not indexed in Scopus, we just randomly decide that maybe they are not indexed because maybe they are. Moreover,
one criterion, not necessarily the only one, but Scopus if it's in Scopus, it tends to be reasonable. Yeah? They may also not be part of the Consortium on Publication Ethics, COPE, which is a very good way of checking whether actually the journal has a proper peer review. Because one of the key challenges with scam journals is they don't have proper peer review. You can get this invitation, which I get on a daily basis, publish your paper in 2 weeks in an internationally known journal, just forget it, because it's not possible. Or super discount until the 31st of December if you send us the journal now. Rubbish. But there are lots out there, and unfortunately lots of us are falling into this trap. And there's an interesting point, what you said about reviewing. If you write a literature review, how do you deal with information from scam journals? It's not an easy question, and will you just exclude it and say, I only focus myself on Scopus, etc.? Well, maybe the articles I think good, but they were poorly advised, the authors, in terms of where to publish it. So it does raise a whole huge range of challenges. But how do you find out, what are indicators if the journal is not good?
When they ask about the publication fee.
Well, but yeah, okay, yeah, publication fee, but there's open access, and open access is now quite widely.
So they should check for indexing first, whether it is an
Exactly. So you want to find out whether it's an index and whether it's a real index. So if they say Copernicus index, thank you very much and goodbye. I don't want to deal with you. A very simple trick is, many of these journals don't have a domain name for their email. You get an email from someone at gmail.com saying this is a wonderful journal. If you look into it, there's very little behind it, and it's just a personal email. There's nothing behind. The other interesting thing is these emails invite you always tend to start with greetings of the day, or we hope you have a wonderful day. Now that's not bad, because I may write you, well, how are you? What's up? But if I get it from someone I've never ever been in touch with, it's rather bizarre. So there are all these indicators. Another one, which is very easy to do, go through the board of editors, advisory board. If you think, well, most of them I don't know, and they are in an area where you know the field reasonably well, it's another point where you may say, well, okay, they're just fishing. But then, I have a good colleague who got on the editorial board of one of these journals without knowing. So you have to be careful. None of these is a perfect criteria. But scam journals is one of the biggest issues we face in the field.
Yeah, they're just
I could have brought a USB.
yeah.
So what else? How else do you find out? Well, very often the language of the email is rubbish. If you get an email inviting you to contribute a paper to complementary medicine, COMPLI, etc., not complementary medicine. There's something fishy there. Now we all make mistakes. I sometimes write about medicinal plants instead of plants, and we all do this. So that's typos are normal, but not if they come from a professional body, a publisher and the like. They must be able to understand the difference between complementary and complementary. So poor language in the way you address. Very often they have very posh addresses. People always say, well, they come from India. Rubbish. They have their office somewhere, and one of the worst scam publishers is based in Germany. So don't think that the address automatically gives it away, but you find them more in Asia than you find it anywhere else, for the simple reason that there's more going on economically in this area. But the other big area you can explore is really what are they, what's the look of the journal. I know Indian journals tend to be a little bit more flowery and nicely done. We Europeans are sort of a little bit dull, and the extreme ones are some of the biochemical journals where there's nothing, no logo or anything. But if it comes along as something which just doesn't look serious, that's another way of thinking about it, because in the end it's again about a professional publication. But as I said, the best ones are now evolving are the COPE certificates. Quite a few years ago there was the famous Beals list. I don't know whether you know about the Beals list. Anyone knows about it? No. This was a list compiled by a librarian in, wasn't Montana, but one of the central states in the US. And he basically checked journals. In most of the cases he got it right, and he challenged journals in areas like peer review, etc. So he then published the list, the Beals list of predatory journals. And as I said, it wasn't perfect and it's completely out of date, so it's not really makes too much sense now. But this was one of the first efforts trying to come to grips with it. How to identify it. And obviously there are some very famous publishers which you also need to look out for. Stay away from omics. Yeah, Herbert Publisher is another rather famous and big one. But and then there's something else which you have to be watched out for, and that's one of the nastier things. There are journals out there which systematically cheat you in thinking it's a reputable one by slight modifications of the title. There are journals out there which basically mimic the title of an established journal, and you think, oh yeah, that's what it is, and it is not. So there's a lot of nasty stuff out there. But as you said in the beginning, any international database, recognized database, is a good source if it is based on some sort of peer review and assessment. Oh, okay, we seem to be doing things. Okay. Okay, well, we already started, so we are in the middle of a rather interesting discussion about publication and peer review. But I still want to do some sort of things I like to do at the beginning. And we are trying something we tried yesterday, being a little bit more interactive. And you have binary choices most of the cases, so you must either say no or yes, and there's no alternative. Who has published at least one paper? I have. Okay, that's quite a few. Thank you. Who has not published a paper yet then? It's a bit more than half. Thank you. Who has had at least one paper rejected by one of these so-called editors like myself? That's not too many, so you're probably lucky the ones that try. Okay. Who has published a relatively large number of papers? Let's say more than 10. Okay. So, thank you. That's just for me also to get a little bit of a feeling for what sort of experience you have. Now, I'm doing this presentation very much coming from my own experience. And I like to tell a little story there at the beginning. And when I wrote my very first paper,
which is quite a few years ago, and it took about 2 years to get it through the peer review process. But that was in the Stone Age when papers were sent out by something called the mail. You may not know what that is nowadays, but that's what it was. So I was sitting on an editor's desk for month and month in a huge pile of paper. But to get to this manuscript, which I submitted, the first recommendation I got from my supervisor is go home and write your introduction. I spent about 3 or 4 weeks writing the bloody introduction and thinking about everything, and then we did everything, and in the end I went back to the introduction and I find out bloody rubbish, I can't do anything with this introduction. So in a way I like to call this talk also, quoting in a very loose way Shakespeare, "He all my sins remember." So I hope that I can tell you a little bit about the things you shouldn't do because I did it. So, how to write a high quality scientific paper? So we have a little technical problem with the whole computer design freeze. So while we sort this out, let's continue a little bit. So what I'm doing today is to cover some of the key areas, the writing process. Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Here we are, the writing process, but also sort of how to have a strategy in developing something. And obviously this is fed by all the experience I have had as an editor, and I'll say a few things. A little disclaimer, a good part of the information was actually provided to me very kindly by Rune Kanter-Schlittke, who at the time was the in-house editor of Elsevier. So that's linking to the activities of Frontiers, of Elsevier, but not of Frontiers, I'm going to come to later. But I have to be very clear, I'm not speaking on behalf of for Elsevier. There's some, I can also say a few things about any concerns you may have in terms of publishing there or in an open access journal, but truly want to be independent. Now, one thing we haven't discussed, what I want to start with in a moment, is why do scientists publish? What is a good manuscript? How to achieve it? And then revision and response to review, something which I really want to address a little bit in the context of India, because I think there we have a few weaknesses which are quite unique, and then ethical issues which could be in fact an entire lecture on its own. Now, tell me, why do you want to publish? There's no good reason for it. There are millions of papers out there, why add another one? So why do you publish? Any opinions from the floor? Why don't you want your paper to be published?
It may be, sir, answer may not be interesting, but I find it gives immense satisfaction. It gives a feeling of achievement. So,
yeah, great answer. I agree. Yeah. Other reasons. Mulish, why do you have students who have to publish?
Yeah. I will. Whatever I am doing in my lab, I would like to tell to the world that this is our achievement, this is our data. Because if you do not publish, somebody will not come to know what is going on in their labs actually. If people will not publish, nobody will know what is going on in the lab and what is there. Because after all, whatever we are publishing, the main results or the conclusion will come out of their publication. So one has to publish. And secondly, I agree with the agenda that it gives a scientist a sense of satisfaction and achievement. That is better.
I think that's absolutely right. There's another very simple reason. Lots of universities require for PhD a certain number of publications.
Yes.
So I think that's exactly what's the purpose of all these activities, and that's what we that's really what we need to think about very carefully. Now, for this presentation, what I really want to take you home, I'm putting it here at the very first slide. And we talked in a moment before we formally started about some of the issues. The amount of time we spend as editors and reviewers in dealing with simple things. Every journal, reputable journal, has very detailed guidelines. The simple message is you must understand these guidelines. In Frontiers, for example, we now have the 4 pillars of best practice. If in these guidelines it is stated that, for example, the red polyedema is no longer acceptable as an essay as such, then that's a policy of this journal. You can say that policy is wrong, but you must understand what the specific guidelines are. And later on, we'll try to link up to this website and show you some of the things. If the rules of 5 of the Journal of Pharmacology tell you certain things, that simply is what the guidelines are. They are based on the idea that we want to publish something which is state of the art. You need to understand that. Check whether the journal is actually suitable for your work. Sounds trivial, but it still is an issue. And then comply with the scientific requirements and technical of the journal. So you must go back and really make sure that your journal does. The worst thing which happens if you get a manuscript rejected, just resend it to another journal, or re-upload it to another journal, and don't even try to understand what that journal is doing. And sometimes it's very easy, because if I then get an email addressed to me as another person in another journal, I immediately know that this isn't right. They're just fishing as long as they can without putting any effort into it. Because if we want to have an impact, it must be done in such a way that it is really good quality and targeted for this journal. A simple thing, and I'm sure we don't have a single native speaker of English in this room. I may be wrong, but I just assume it. We all have English as a second language. So it is more difficult to express it. And I'm in a very intensive discussion with a Russian colleague right now who really complains that he can't express himself in English, and that it would be wonderful if he could express it in Russian. Well, the simple thing is I don't read Russian, so I can't help him on this one. And we are trying to get the manuscript moving. But the challenge really is it's easier to express something in your local language, be it Hindi or Russian or German or Spanish, as compared to English. So it costs more work. And that's actually where some of the issues come in, for example, plagiarism. But it is important that you find a way to bring the manuscript up to decent standard. And then something we'll focus on quite a bit are ethical principles. And here's one point: ethics is universal. The thing that we don't have to do this in country X doesn't apply to the basic rules of publishing. And they are really, science is a global activity, and ethics is something absolutely global. So it's something we just need to take seriously, and where we need to engage with the specific ways each country and each institution interprets it. Now, I think very early on I did want to highlight this, but we did quite a bit in the discussion before, open access versus closed access. It's actually, it sounds very easy, and it's not. It has become an utter and complete mess in terms of what's going on. The traditional model until many years ago was that you published and then the publisher sold the journal to a university or an institution. But more and more then universities push for making this information available. So in many universities, including my own, now have a policy where I must deposit the latest version of my manuscript in a repository. In UCL, it's called IRIS, Internal Research something. So if you actually need a paper from me from the last 10 years or so, you would find it on this repository. If I don't do it, I get a very nasty letter from our head administration and saying you're not complying with our basic requirements. So that's what is now called green open access. But for this you need to know, okay, this guy works at University College London, etc., etc. Many other universities don't do it. So it makes it more difficult. We have personal repositories. You can create your own. So there are lots of ways to do this. None of these is really open access. All what it is it's a way to circumvent the firewall which exists around journals. The other extreme is you or your project pays for it, and you pay a certain amount, and this is normally from $1,000 about $3,000 to $4,000. Some of them have become very pricey, including frontiers. So you pay for it. Some non-commercial publishers have discounts for certain countries. It would include India, and many have waivers for the least developed countries. The list of 99 countries which are basically lacking the resources. This is then gold open access. And in between you have all sorts of other things which are sort of ways of doing it. We now have journals which make automatically 3 out of 10 or 3 out of 15 articles in each issue open access. The rest is behind a paywall. That's a decision by the publisher. Why do they do it? Any idea? Bring up the impact factor. It's an easy way to move around a little bit. If you have 2 or 3 reviews per issue, you make them open access, their site is very binary, so your impact factor goes up. So because they are also part of this whole competition. Yeah? So, as I said, one of my more recent activities, and it's actually recent means 10 years, is Frontiers in Pharmacology, the section on pharmacology. And I did want to say a few words here, because most of you will know that for many years I've been involved with the Journal of Pharmacology, but it's interesting to see how this open access model has actually grown. We started in a few months, it will be 10 years ago. And what you see here is that in the first 6 years or so, basically nothing happened. We were a minor journal which nobody really noticed. We had a few years when we had about 5 or 6 papers which were published. The entire Frontiers in Pharmacology at this time had about 30, 40, 50 journals. Then it started to take off, and you see that today we are approaching, this was last night, so sometimes before the New Year's Eve or early next year, we will have 1,000 papers published. Here you have the articles per year submitted, and you see that earlier this year we reached 1,100. So you've seen an explosion of submissions. You're building up very actively the editorial board. The structure is somewhat different, and the specific reason why I put this here is one of the really interesting ways Frontiers does it is through so-called research topics. Other journals call this virtual special issues. A virtual special issue or research topic is where a group of colleagues decide we look at something which is of common interest and within the scope of this journal. We've had things on a lot on Chinese medicine and network pharmacology, on inflammation, etc., etc. And I just want to invite you to think about what you can do in terms of a research topic. So that's the website of it, and this actually still highlights the inclusion of Dr. Amina Guri-Fakim from Mauritius to our editorial board. I'm very happy that she joined a few months ago. She's a very well-known natural product chemist and the former president of Mauritius, so we actually did want to highlight this. We have quite a few people on board, and we are currently actively recruiting so-called associate editors. So that's just a little bit of background, and I would say that currently more time than ever do I spend on these Frontiers activities. They're really taking off in a way which is quite amazing. Now, when we are about scientific writing, select the right journal. A little question for me. Here's a manuscript which we want to submit. Use silvinoids with insect deterrent effects from a plant X. Where would you send it to? I've given you some traditional journals: Planta Medica, Bioorganic Medicine Chemistry, Phytochemistry, Journal of Agricultural Food Chemistry, Journal of Natural Products, Biochemical Pharmacology, and the Journal of Natural Pharmacology. So what you have to ask yourself, which of these journals would be the most suitable?
I think, sir, it would be agriculture and food industry.
Yeah. That's certainly a very good one. Now, which one would not be suitable?
Please repeat your question.
Sorry?
Please repeat your question.
Which ones would not be suitable for a manuscript with this title? As a guess.
Journal of
In case
Pharmacology.
Correct. Yeah. So there are quite a few. Biochemical pharmacology. This is not biochemical
Yes, this is
pharmacology. This is an insect, some sort of a spectral insect. Planta Medica, you would have to find out a very specific question. Insect deterrent, is this within their remit? So you need to check. Phytochemistry would be suitable. Journal of Agricultural Food Chemistry, Journal of Natural Products, they certainly would all be suitable. And bioorganic and chemistry, again, is unlikely. So that's an example of what you need to do, and obviously this is very superficial. So how do you find the right journal? Obviously, very often you will be told, okay, well, I've published there before, just try it. But one of the simple ways is when your manuscript is relatively well advanced, just go through your bibliography and see what journals you cite. And if you suddenly see, oh, I've cited 5 times the journal of something, that may be a good target journal. But then check it again against the criteria. So, check what is in your paper versus what has been, what other options there are. There's something else here which is important. Is the journal actually accepting this type of articles? If a journal no longer accepts short communication, and yours is a short communication, you must look for a journal which accepts short communications. And there are journals dedicated to this. All the letter journals, like the chemistry letter, PEPS letters, they're all short communication journals. And that's something you need to think about. You want to think, now lots of academic administrators down publishing high impact factor journals. I actually think in most cases this is nonsense. Yes, you want to be in a good journal, in a very good journal, but you want to be in a journal where you are read. Some of my papers which are sort of least noticed are papers which are published in journals outside of the area where people recognize what we stand for as a team. very important, look whether your topic is in any way linked to something this journal has done before, maybe a review, a hot topic, a special issue, whatever. So look at all these things, and as I said before, look at the guidelines. So these are very simple ways to check it. And again, what I said a moment ago, do you reach the right audience? Do you want to publish in the Journal of Organic and Medicinal Chemistry because you want to reach this community? Yes or no? So it's very important. And then something very important, is it a realistic choice? Don't be too self-critical, but also don't be too naive, assuming. I had a student from a nearby university who was very keen to submit something to the Lancet. I'm not involved in the project, but we discussed it. And I said, well, I don't think you stand any chance with this topic. I was very frustrated when 2 weeks after submission we got a letter back saying, sorry, this is not of interest. Now you can try it. There's nothing wrong about trying, but don't be too disappointed if you think your wonderful work, it doesn't merit the standards of Lancet. It happens to us all the time, as I said. I've had many papers rejected. We talked about the reputability of publishers. And I must stress this more than any time before. This is something you need to look out for very carefully. Obviously, Elsevier is a dominant, very successful, very good publisher with a tremendous track record in sciences and a tremendous financial benefit generated to it. But it is one of many. Wiley, Oxford University Press, the American Chemical Society journals, etc. So there's a huge number of publishers you can think about. What this also implies is that you may want to explore something which is maybe a little bit more novel, but where you see potential. When we started Frontiers, there was no evidence for this ever becoming a successful publisher. I trusted it for two very simple reasons. One, the core people who started it were behind the famous Human Brain Project, leading scientists in their respective areas. They were very keen to have an alternative model to the closed access publishing. That's what they tried to establish. Secondly, they were very keen to do it as a community-based initiative. They were driving it by contacting people like myself and said, would you be willing to develop this area? So it was I thought, I'd never been asked to do something like this. I thought that sounds interesting if you do it in this combination. And it's, in fact, today, the one publisher which is more community-based than any other one you can think about. So, I'm not saying don't try a new enterprise which is pushed by the Indian agency or whatever. That's all very good, but look at it very carefully and make sure that they get the basics right. And then, as I said earlier, in the long run, we need to have this article indexed widely and appropriately in an international database. So we talked about why do we publish. I'm coming back to this. And I'm coming back to this for very important other reasons. You love it, as you said a while ago. You want to get a promotion, very appropriate. Get funding. You need it for your degree. And there's a very important point. If this comes to me as an editor, the one thing I sort of accept is, yes, you like it. If you, 2 weeks after submission, send an email saying, sorry, could you fast track my paper? My promotion is due next week. I can't help you. I'm not on your promotion board. I'm not responsible, and people need to simply accept that this is not something as an editor I can take any responsibility for. And if you need my feedback back by the 31st of December, I cannot guarantee it. Because I am relying on the voluntary contributions of others to help. And if they are on a Christmas holiday, well, be there on a Christmas holiday. I have to wait until they get back. And the whole idea that we must do make sure that this is peer reviewed until the 31st of December. Just doesn't work. So understand this side, what actually works there. And it may go, you may say, okay, in India I don't really care about Christian holidays. Well, you do because you have them. But it depends on where we send the manuscript for review to. Chinese New Year is now a very big gap in the peer review period because the Chinese have other things to do. And they have become a big group of peer reviewers. The real task an editor has is to do this. You have new information which is interesting and relevant, and you want to share this with the community. And that's where we want to facilitate something. So we try to achieve this. And the reason for this is very simple. A, you invest a lot of time, your university invests a lot of time and money, the state possibly invests a lot of money, so it should be shared. And if it's only to highlight that certain things don't work, because they're not negative results. They're simply results where you demonstrate that that is not the right approach. And many journals are now very explicit in saying you are not worried about the results being negative, but you must make it very clear what is the relevance of whatever you find. That brings in a very interesting minor point, but I think I'll make it now. I very often get manuscripts where authors tell me, with this paper we want to validate the traditional use of plant X, used in anywhere. What's wrong about this statement? We want to validate the use of plant X in the treatment of eczema. What's wrong about this statement?
Biased?
It's absolutely biased, correct. If you say you want to validate it, basically tells me you'll find a way to prove that it does do something. And then you push the dose, you push who knows what. You must have a testable question inside. And that's a very important one. I'm not saying you must have a hypothesis, some people go much further, but you must have a question where there are some sort of alternatives in terms of what you will be finding. So in very practical terms, what you normally see as authors is you submit a manuscript and then you get some sort of feedback. But in fact, when does the writing process of a paper start? Any idea? It starts on the first day you start your experiment. So it's not that you at one point simply sit down and say, now I write my paper. You must think about this when you start your experiments. Of course, if you start an MSc or a PhD, you may not do it on the first days, but very early on in the experimental design of the series of experiments, you need to decide, that's what I want to do. So the project concept and the funding behind it is a very important determining factor for all this. Then you generate these experimental field data. You discuss it with your supervisor. Professor Munich then tells you, I would go a little bit more into this direction. I think that is not going to work. And you'll be right or wrong, we never know. Afterwards, you're always clever. You discuss it as a poster at a conference. So we build up some understanding of the wider context. You get feedback. And that develops into what then becomes your manuscript. And then it goes out. And then the exciting moment. You press the button, submit it. You get an acknowledgement. What happens then? What happens then? It goes into peer review. Now, very often the peer review is now preceded by an internal peer review. In case of the Journal of Pharmacology, there are 4 so-called managing editors that check it against certain criteria. Frontiers has an absolutely extremely well-developed system. They have about 21 criteria that automatically check it for. Plagiarism being one of them, but also image manipulation, which is all linked to plagiarism. And then more scientific questions in terms of content, focus, etc. So This is done because the peer review process is simply overwhelmed. So if within 2 weeks you get an answer, it has been reviewed internally and the journal decided sadly you can't take it. If not, it goes out for peer review to external colleagues. Normally 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 1, and in a few cases a bit more. So they are then deciding what to do. In very few cases do you get an immediate acceptance. I think in my career I've had about 10 or 12 papers which are accepted without any review. That's very rare. You get a rejection, and again I've had many more than 10 rejections, and you then just need to think what to do next. And in many cases you get a request for revision, and you do the revision, and then the process starts again. Then it goes into publication, becomes a manuscript in press, and then final correction and publication. I'm jumping ahead a bit of the game because we're talking about ethics. I got an email last week from a colleague who warned me about a certain group of authors. They just submitted a paper to the journal he's editing. He accepted it, and then he got a message from them they want to withdraw the paper because they already had it accepted in another journal. So they did a parallel submission. Completely unacceptable. But once it is impressed, it's very difficult or impossible to stop it. So it will then be retracted. So you are in a pretty awkward situation. And this is important now because with the electronic environment we're working in, the abstract of your accepted paper will appear basically immediately. Once it's accepted and it's gone to the production stage, the abstract will show in many cases the entire manuscript. In many journals, I can say publish immediately or have a delay until final proofs, etc. But you have to assume that the paper will be available in the moment it gets accepted. And if you're unlucky enough that a paper which is submitted twice is accepted on the same day or within a short period of time, you're in trouble. So don't do it. And these are just classical things which still happen, and it's surprising that it happens. Then you have the final corrections. Again, a comment there. I think the final corrections today are actually what many publishers do in there are pretty low quality. Editing is something where you need to pay much more attention at this stage. You may have some characters in Hindi or another language. Getting them right is problematic. You may have tables, the formatting of the tables. So you have a lot of extra things there, and then the paper is unmutably published and out in the public domain as a final paper. So, how do we do it? We talked a lot about it already, so maybe I'll jump a few. I'll skip these. As I said earlier, one important thing is to be very clear about the scope and whether your paper fits. Now, it sounds simple, but you must sometimes really look very carefully, not only what's written, this is the scope for the journal paper pharmacology. Not going to read it to you because it doesn't matter. It's actually on the website, so you don't have to worry. But there may be queries where you say, is it really fit? Now, we had the example a moment ago about some insecticidal activity. Is this within the journal? You wouldn't find an answer here. You need to look, run a simple search, anti-insecticidal activity on the journal website. And you'll find a paper by Miller and Smith, 2017, doing this in the Paramo in Brazil. Well, then obviously it has been similar things have been published there, so you can use. In case of doubt, write the editorial office. They may be willing to answer, maybe not. This depends on the journal. So you then get into the writing process. And why is the manuscript so important? But you have to think about the figures I just showed you a moment ago about 1 journal. The Journal of Pharmacology receives about 5,000 manuscripts a year, of which we publish about 700. So well less than 20%, about 15%. In case of Frontiers, we receive about, I would say until the end of the year, about 1,200. Again, a large share is rejected. Many cases of rejection could have been solved very easily if some basic rules were followed. And this is really, you must have a good manuscript. You must be clear. It must be written in standard English. It must be written in such a way that, yes, I can follow your argument because I'm not an expert in ashwagandha or in the Brazilian cerrado or who knows what. I get papers about all sorts of things and need to find my way around it. So these are some of the classical problems. We don't know what the goal of your paper is. Now, in some journals, this may be quite okay. Chemistry can live with much more descriptive science. You isolate the compounds and you say we isolate them because we find it interesting. That's perfectly acceptable and good, but not in the biological sciences. We need to think about what is the context, what's the goal of your work. We talked about the paper not being in scope, and then simple things, the amount of sloppy references you get. You have everything from the wrong citation style, where you can see you had previously been submitted to another journal, to simply not being able to follow the alphabet, to inconsistent references in terms of the structure, etc., etc. So people assume that EndNote automatically does it for you. It doesn't. EndNote is a pretty stupid system. It does what you tell them. So references is very important. The wrong structure of the paper. Some journals want the material methods at the end. Well, then do so. It's more in the chemistry, phytochemistry, letters. But make sure that you do it. There are clear indications what needs to go there. There are very specific indications what needs to go in. Ethical aspects. You will need a statement about ethics if you're doing anything with human or animals. If not, I talked about Frontiers a moment ago, this automatically goes back to the authors for as a theory. Many have a graphical abstract, including the Journal of Pharmacology. Some of these graphical abstracts are utterly funny and ridiculous, but look at it as an advertisement of your work. You want people to get excited about it. You make it in such a way that people can read it. It's actually not a criterion which will result in a rejection of the paper. It just makes it more difficult for the editor and the reviewers to understand what we want to achieve. And then very often you now have structured abstracts, and we'll come back to this later. So it's again not following the author's instructions. Now, one point I'll repeat many times. We have a series of theories which you get later, we'll talk about this later on, through the reviewers' comments. Now, reviewers can be very nasty, but in general, they're really trying to help. And for me as an editor and for a reviewer, it's very frustrating if I don't get a decent answer. And unfortunately, one of the strange observations coming from India, the response to reviewers' queries are far too often non-specific. The needful was done. Well, I'm sorry, I don't even know what you want to say there because there's a list of 15 points. What have you actually done? What have you changed? It's a specific response which you need to provide. We talked about the language. We talked about the problems with the general sloppiness. The final point is resubmission of rejected manuscripts without revision. And that still happens all too often, and it's now detected in the systems, especially if it goes to the same building. It makes no sense if your manuscript is rejected. Don't just wait 6 months and submit the same manuscript, but try to solve the issues which are raised. Many years ago, I had one author who really drove me nuts. He's resubmitted the same paper 7 times. It became ridiculous. It became absolutely ridiculous. And the person's simple hope was going to go to another editor. Unfortunately, after resubmission number 1, it was flagged. And at that time, in the JP, we didn't have a fast-track rejection procedure, so it had to come back to me again and again. I don't really trust you, I can tell you. And these are little things in extreme cases, but I just want to highlight what sort of things one is coping with. So, these are things we talked about. I'm not going to repeat many of these things. But one thing we also need to address here more widely is salami papers. Try to make a comprehensive and interesting study. If you do a pharmacological experiment with a plant and you're using a 70% ethanol extract and a 96% ethanol, by all means, make one paper out of it. It makes no sense to say we have an extract in paper 1 and another extract in paper 2, unless the results are so dramatically different that you find a very strong justification, which is very, very unlikely. But salami papers are not good for your career. People will see it. You know, I was involved some time ago in a promotion panel for someone, and he isolated or identified flavonoid glycosides from a whole series of Asteraceae. And there was a paper, known and new blah 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 flavonoids from I don't know what species. And then the same type another plant. This is not a good way to promote you in the scientific community. So, we want meaningful, clear, and reproducible. And the reproducibility is something else we will need to address throughout the whole thing. There's a very nice saying, I don't know where it comes from, but your paper or your papers is your passport to your community. I think that's a very nice way of highlighting how important it is, and it's more than just something to do in a very sloppy way. A good manuscript really must be interesting and exciting. It's another important thing. You want people to get excited about what you do. If what Davida said earlier, it's all about, I love it, then think about how can you transmit this excitement. So, we talked about the different types of manuscripts earlier, and I'm coming back to this now, for the simple reason that this actually has a very important impact on how we write it. Now, in a most simplistic way, there are the full papers or original articles, there are the short communications, and the review papers. In terms, there are obviously other ones like commentaries, letters to the editor, etc., but we leave them all aside. The review papers are something quite distinct from the other. A full article is pretty straightforward in terms of what it is. But what's important, you will need to demonstrate that you have covered one area in a reasonably comprehensive way. Nothing is 100% complete, you know. But it needs to be a comprehensive coverage of the topic. So if you do an anti-inflammatory assay of a plant, you need to think about, okay, what type of models can I use? What gives me additional information? Do I need some mechanistic studies? Do I do some kind of chemical characterization? It must be something much more comprehensive. If you identify a new compound, it's a single one, quite unusual structure. You want to get it out. It's more short communication. It's an exciting finding, but it's not a large topic. And review papers are a very different kettle of fish. They are, first of all, covering the entire literature based on the current understanding. Now, many people think they just take the abstracts and sort of compile the abstracts, get all the information out, and that's a review paper. You don't read this as a review paper. The first thing is the plagiarism rate in these papers tends to be 40 or 50%, so then it becomes problematic. But more importantly, it's not something which contributes to scientific dialogue. What it does, it simply provides the data which are already out there in a different form. The review articles must be a critical assessment of the state of the art. And here comes the question, what is the critical assessment? And this is a huge challenge, and it also depends from journal to journal. But remember one thing, the critique always implies that it highlights achievements and limitations. It's absolutely wrong to say that overall the literature cannot demonstrate any useful therapeutic effects of these drugs, because the data are too preliminary. That's not a conclusion. Nor can the conclusion be, with this paper we demonstrate that plant X is a wonder drug which can be used to treat something. Both of them are not a critical reflection of the state of the art. In one case, it's too critical about everything. In the other case, they are simply no wonder drugs. And there will be specific questions to be asked. And that's where, again, the rules of 5 and similar things come in as criteria. So, review papers are also need a very different way of writing them and how to prepare them, but I'm not going to go into it. So, we talked about the right journal, so right. You know about the general structure of the paper. I don't have to repeat this. Material, you basically have title, author, abstract, keywords, the main text. In journal talk, that's IMRAD, and that's introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Very often results and discussion is combined, especially in biology and pharmacology. Less so in chemistry. And methods is obviously material methods. And I'm sorry, the simple thing is an introduction is an introduction. If you put your results into the introduction, there's something wrong. Methods are methods. And again, there are different traditions. If you look, for example, at American journals, the introduction very often ends with a short summary of the findings of the paper. This is a very specific tradition in the liberal arts policies of the US. Some journals find this acceptable, others don't. So you need to understand these things. Most journals today, I would think, want an introduction to provide the general framework, and very often they ask you what is the testable research question you're investigating. So what I just said about the American Liberal Arts Division, so a little bit of an exception. Now, I started this by saying how I got it wrong the first time, or how I was told to do it and I got it wrong. This is my way of putting things together. The way to start your paper is actually to compile all the figures, tables, etc. Because that's what you're working in the lab. You have these pharmacological data. You have these, whatever, data on some field survey. You have some data on some toxicology. You need to think, what are the figures I need, what are the tables I need. Go back to the guides to authors and check how many they accept. If they say up to 6 or 7 figures are acceptable, and you have 20, you need to think about it. You need to think about what is a meaningful figure. A very simple example, if you have 2 values in male and female, that's a total of 4 data points. That's not a table. And that's a very tiny set of information which you can put in text. So we need to think how big is your table. You follow with the methods, results, and discussions, or separately results and discussions. And again, you write them together. You write the methods, because you will have them in your lab book anyway. And there's one important point. In all the discussion about plagiarism, very often people argue, well, I can't do it because the methods are always the same and I have limited a number of ways to write it. The methods are hardly ever criticized in the whole context of plagiarism. So don't worry. There are only so many ways to explain a Western work. This is straightforward. So that's not the worry. The worry is that it's clear and that you describe it in a precise way and obviously try to express it in your own words. Then you write together the conclusion and introduction. And that's very important that these two go together. And that's something you see very often, but where if you look at the paper, something is claimed as an aim in the introduction, which is then not addressed in the conclusion. If you say, I'm investigating the same example of anti-inflammatory activity, anti-inflammatory activity in a series of biochemical targets, I've used TNF alpha, interleukin 6, direct polyedema, and who knows what else, and here are my data, and I did some phytochemical analysis, and I came up with a series of lignans which seem to be responsible for this activity. And afterwards, in your conclusion, you talk about the effectiveness of the plant in the treatment of atopic eczema. Continue with the title and abstract. The title and abstract is quite important, but you really do it last. Don't worry about it too much. Now, in all these sections, there are word limits. Many publishers now have a word limit of 350 words for an abstract. Why? This is what the indexing services accept, the maximum of 350 words. Otherwise, they just cut out. So make sure that you stick to what is requested by the journal. Now, there's something else you need to think about in this writing process. And this is, an article takes you from the general to the specific, and then back to the general. Now, here one of the key comments is, general doesn't mean that you repeat again. In India, medicinal plants have been used for thousands of years. They are a valuable treasure of India, and. This doesn't tell you anything about the code. The general introduction implies there's a specific need to stay with this topic where I'm using as an example. There's a definite need to develop new treatments for atopic eczema for primary healthcare use in India. The increase in cases over the last 10 years has been X. One plant reported to be used is plant A. This is a very precise indication of what it is all about. As an editor, I'm sorry, I don't care whether it has been used for 5,000 years or 2,000, because there's no evidence for it anyway. But I care about the specific scientific context. I need to understand you're working, because the introduction I sort of sketched out tells me, okay, I need someone who knows something about atopic dermatitis. It's information. It's India. It's a plant called so-and-so. These are 4 important points of information which help me as an editor to think, okay, I know someone who's very good in atopic dermatitis and can help as a peer reviewer. She's not from India, but from China, but maybe she will do it. Oh, I know someone who's worked on another species of this genus. Maybe he's interested. So this is very important at all levels that you are precise and specific in the context of what you want to do. Now, we can spend a lot of time on all aspects of the paper, but one of the interesting and simple things are titles. And I do like titles. And some time ago, I had the great pleasure of editing a special issue on basically sustainable sourcing of plants in China. And one of the people there in charge was Tony Cunningham. And he came up with brilliant titles. One was, for example, Paris in the spring. You wonder, what the heck is this? And then it continued with some very specific topic. It was referring to Paris, the plant, the genus, and it's flowering in the spring and it's collecting of the plant material in the spring. Another one was simply called 1 billion cups of tea. It was a review on the Chinese use of herbal teas. I want to show this as an example that you can be rather creative and interesting in titles. And both of them are doing very well because people looking at Paris in the spring, what the heck is it? So we have this title here. And I want you to think which ones you prefer. Antinociceptive activity of choline in mice, pharmacological study of choline in mice, contribution to the effects of choline in mice, evaluation of the effects of choline in rodents. Which of these 4 options is the best?
First one.
The first one. That was easy. Yeah. Why? There are too many ambiguities here. A pharmacological study doesn't tell you anything. Contribution to is simply not needed. Yeah? The evaluation of is not needed. And then in rodents, what rodents? Yeah. So the specificity is important. But as I said, it's also good to have an exciting title. Oh, sorry. We'll come back to this one in a moment. And one of my favorite ones is from my good colleague in who used to be at King's College, Peter Houghton, whom some of you may remember. And he came up with this title, Uses and Abuses of in vitro testing and pharmacology, Visualizing Elephant. To this audience, I do not here to explain what visualizing elephant means. But it's a brilliant way of highlighting how exciting this question is. And then we have these bizarre titles, just to go back, which for all practical purposes, after reading it 5 times, I still have no idea what they actually want to tell us. So think about these things as really a little bit of wordsmithing, and do it in discussion with people who may have more experience in English. So another thing which I personally find very frustrating if you have a title full of acronyms. Now, if you would have a full-fledged biochemical pharmacologist standing in front of you, for them this would be very normal. Stuck, duck, 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 something. So they can have an entire title full of acronyms. I think for us in a field which is so broad as pharmacology and medicinal plant research, it's not a good idea. Keep it informative and concise and avoid, as I said, technical jargon. Now, we briefly addressed the abstract, but I'm going through it in a bit more detail now in the next few slides. The abstract must really be very, very precise and clear. Now, there's a very simple point to keep in mind. If you can say something in a simple sentence, say it in a simple sentence. Don't try to have huge sentences with God knows how many clauses and general claims. And again, be specific. But specific in such a way that a non-expert understands it. And the abstract, really, together with the graphical abstract, is the advertisement of your manuscript. And this is really in the peer review process, the part where I already take, I would say, more than half of the decision. If I don't get the message in the abstract, I sort of tend to check some figures, the conclusions, and then I may just give up and find a justification to reject. I know you will say, well, that's not fair, maybe we can improve it in the second round. And if this is the case, yes, I will give an author a chance. But other colleagues don't do it. If I don't get what it is, why bother? So keep this in mind. Brief. An abstract must be brief. You must describe your goals, testable goals, the methods, the results, etc. And very importantly, you must draw some reasonable conclusions. Now, it may be structured, it may not be structured, that depends on the journal. But they are becoming certainly more and more popular. Keywords. Now, something that many people don't think about anymore, but it's actually quite important. Because if I try to find reviewers, I do it on the basis of keywords. Now, in a field like ours, where we're looking at medicinal plants and ethnopharmacology, which keyword is completely pointless? Which keyword makes no sense in ethnopharmacology? Ethnopharmacology. It's too non-specific. At the same time, if you're very specific and only have keywords like TNF-alpha, STAT3, IL-6, and then a plant name, it becomes very difficult to retrieve information. I will conclude from this information, so I'm going to searching for someone doing inflammatory pharmacology, but it is important to have a reasonable balance of keywords. Now, sometimes that you can find this in other articles, but very often I suggest you go back into the databases and see how they index it, similar articles on this topic. We talked about abbreviations. Abbreviations are very problematic because they are also very often have different meanings. What's CBD? It's the conventional biological diversity, of course. No, it's CBD oil from cannabis, cannabidiol, etc. So abbreviations may be useful in a neurospecific area, but unless you only communicate with them, be very careful. And then I've said it too many times, but check the guide to authors. So, in an introduction, this is a completely different topic, but it doesn't matter. But in an introduction, what we will do is we will very clearly highlight, in the end, what is the specific goal. In this case, actually quite interesting, it's a development of a certain therapeutic approach in the treatment of cancer. So this is a development goal, which is perfectly fine as a goal, because it indicates that the initial testing has already passed, so now you're at a stage where you want to develop something very specific. So you summarize the current state of the art in a very precise way, and then you come up with the specific goals of this paper. There will always be conflicting information. Spell it out. If there are issues which are not clear with people's interest, spell it out. But also highlight what may be the growing evidence in a certain area. So that's something where you really need to make sure that you summarize the information. Now again, a very general point here. Very often people then say, okay, there's a need for developing a certain treatment for X, Y, Z. Let's stick to a topic, dermatitis, etc., etc., and they give all sorts of things, and then they say, therefore, we look at plant X. The most basic thing we need to do is we need to provide some information about this plant X. Has it ever been studied for atopic dermatitis? Yes or no? There must be a clear answer. Has it ever been studied for inflammatory parameters in general? Yes or no? If yes, provide evidence. So you need to be very specific here in terms of what is the pre-existing evidence. And as I said before, the mixing of results, discussion, and conclusions is a very typical problem. The methods. It's an interesting challenge because for many years, journals tried to push authors to be as short as possible on methods. Now I think we're a bit more lenient in the electronic environment because the page count is no longer that important. But remember, the methods really must allow someone to reproduce information. Authors can be very lazy, and Western Blot or the Bradford determinations are famous examples where people just cite any paper where they find this method described. And if you go back, you see the citation tree that in fact leads nowhere. So make sure that you cite something which is relevant to this one. It doesn't have to be the primary literature, because it may be modified. It must be something which you are confident describes it appropriately. And there are obviously supplementary materials, etc., to help a reader. Maybe briefly to the methods, two other things. In the plant area, absolutely crucial now, some sort of a specimen, vulture specimen, and all plant names must be taxonomically valid. Taxonomic validity now is, in the area of medicinal plants, most easily assessed using the Kew database, the Medicinal Plant Name Service, and most of the Indian medicinal plants are in there. In other parts of the world, it doesn't work that well, but fully validated names are a core requirement. Otherwise, you cannot find the information on this plant. Now, the results or results in discussion is really about what we found. Again, these are examples of pretty good tables or figures, and they have everything you want: the error bars, the time course, etc., etc. So, what the results we need to show is a logical thread of argument. Now, don't do it in a chronological way you conducted your experiments. It may well be that the first experiment you did has to be reported last. It may not be, but think about before you start writing what is the structure we want to give it. Do not just dump data on us. The data must have some meaning. They must be discussed and analyzed. Many data can go into supplementary material or into tables and figures, and then discuss and analyze what's in there. Now, a very simple thing, but which obviously, unfortunately, doesn't work, for figures and tables need to have very clear and self-explanatory headings. Now, a very trivial thing include controls. Again, surprising how many papers are submitted without proper positive or negative controls. Now, this is one of my favorite examples of things where I'm basically lost. Can everyone read this? You see this thing in here? This was a figure submitted in a manuscript. It's impossible to read. So step back, print out the entire manuscript, and see whether you can actually read it. This was on a PDF. Even when you enlarged it, you couldn't see anything because everything was blurred. So make every effort to have high quality figures. They take time and it's not easy. Scale bars and photographs are essential. Color is very popular. Pie charts with all sorts of color. Think whether you really need it or not. And long boring tables belong in the appendix, not in the main body of the text. We discussed many of these things. Here's some examples. And in a discussion, the discussion then is when you sell your data, when you tell the audience, that's what really we found. That's why I love it. That's why I find it exciting, what we said in the beginning. Now, one of the big mistakes made very often is that you repeat the results which you presented in the previous paragraph. If they are combined, it's not that much of a problem, but if you have separate results and discussion section, do not repeat the results, discuss them. And the same is true if you then pick it up in the conclusion. don't repeat it, but discuss it, draw conclusions from it. So, repetitive manuscripts are a serious issue in this regard. And then put your data in the perspective of the previous information, which you initially introduce in the introduction. So don't repeat the introduction, but tell the reader what it is all about. Now, a very simple but important thing, science is never fully in agreement. There will be data which contradict your data. Say so, and explain why you think your data are better than the stuff published. Or they are simply different. There may be lots of reasons why this is the case. So convince the reader that you are correct or that your interpretation is an alternative under certain conditions. Right. Not a rather random list of things based on my experience. Now, one of the big challenges in the whole discussion about research ethics is plagiarism. One of the classical mistakes many of us make is just cut and paste the introduction of another paper, be it our own or be another one, and then just change the plant name. This is self-plagiarism. If you say the plant X has been used in the region of Bretagne for many years and it's well known to be active in the treatment of a variety of microbial infections. And then you take the same text, instead of antimicrobial, you say, I don't know, inflammation, and another plant name. It is plagiarism. The text will be shown as identical in both the manuscript and the published paper. And this is simply not acceptable. Now, as I said before, do not exaggerate. Science has limitations, but don't be too pessimistic or too optimistic. Yeah, be specific. You know, if it was done at a higher temperature, this doesn't tell me anything. High temperature can be 22 degrees, depending on what you look at it. No, say 48 degrees. And then, very interesting one for us, terminology. Use internationally accepted terminology and use the same. And use a terminology which is understood. So, here we have herbal medicine and phytomedicine and medical product. If you have these three in the table, or in the manuscript, it doesn't work. Because people get confused. What are you talking about? So, be consistent. And please use international terminology. An interesting example coming from India is the term phytoconstituent. If you love the term, we are struggling to see what it is. Is it a secondary metabolite? Is it a primary metabolite? Is it an anorganic ion? They're all constituents of plants. So be clear in terms of what you are doing in terms of the terminology. Now, don't introduce something completely new and unexpected in your manuscript. Everything which you cover needs, in one way or another, be hinted at in the introduction. You can speculate, especially in the conclusion, but if you speculate, it must still have some sort of a foundation. And it must be a logical argument, that's very important. We talked about standard scientific English and terminology. Another interesting development I've seen in recent years is using colloquial language in scientific paper. These data ain't good enough. This doesn't come from India, but I'm sorry, this is not scientific English. Isn't abbreviated knows is not scientific English. And of course, it's a new thing happening with the way we communicate now. But scientific English must have a clear and precise way of expressing itself. So, in the conclusions, show what you have achieved, and based on these findings, show certain, draw certain conclusions, and highlight what is required next. Again, don't repeat things. Don't repeat, for example, the abstract. References, I'm not going to go into detail into this, but for me, references very often are the worst part of the manuscript. And lots of people say, well, then afterwards, this can be sorted in the publication process. But to me, I read this differently. To me, it tells me the authors have not paid attention to the science in sufficient detail. They are not scientifically serious. If the paper is entitled Journal of Ethnocomics, the authors are called something. It just tells me the whole thing has not been done properly. And it's one of the simple things that needs to be checked. Don't inflate the manuscript with too many references, or do it the other way around, have them only very few. A very annoying thing are self-citations, and we feel this does know who likes to cite himself. Seems there must be man thinking about it. And if 20, 30, 40% of all references go to yourself and your collaborators, it becomes very dubious. Because it doesn't tell us that you're in a dialogue with others. And then the other thing, obviously, which is coming up, if you're doing something, not everything will have been published in India, in China, in Brazil, in Germany, or in whatever have you. You must have an international outlook. Very few plants have only been studied in one region. So, the cover letter. Again, be concise. Try to sell what you're doing in your paper, but don't provide a long story. I'm not too keen to find out everything what's happening at your university. But I'm keen to know why you're submitting this paper to this journal and what the key message is. What's the take-home message? And then don't summarize the manuscript, but tell us simply the why. Mention special requirements. I don't want my client to be a reviewer of this manuscript because he is biased on his abilities. This is absolutely appropriate. Or you can also say, I would like XYZ to handle the manuscript because we feel he has the right experience. Whether that happens or not doesn't matter. And you can exclude reviewers, editors, etc. The specific requirements are absolutely okay. Yeah, I think we'll leave it because that's really very much in the guidelines that we discussed. Maybe a final point about your own name, which I think, especially in India, is a bit of a challenge, but also my last name can be a first name. So you have, in many languages, there are umlauts, like or the sharp S in German. So be precise in your checking of names, including your own ones. One of my students, I'll never understand how the last and first name works. He's from Sri Lanka, and after a long debate, he suddenly changed completely what's his last and first name. And I never got it. But the important thing is, he needs to stick now to with what we decide in paper number 1. When we publish in the future, whatever it is, be clear, and it is not easy in the whole context. And as I said, first and last name issues. Min Yang. Would you know what the first and last name is? Maybe it's Yang Ming. Yeah? So these are things where you need to pay all sorts of attention, including with your own names. So we talked about the language, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but clarity, objectivity, imprecise language, and be coherent is really what are the key messages. Yeah, so one thing which is relevant here, don't think you can do it in one go. It's a process. It's a dialogue. You must be focused. It's a lot of work, but you must write, rewrite, and rewrite. Discuss it. Have a journal club where you read the draft and criticize it. So lots of ways how you can do this. And if you have colleagues who are willing to provide you feedback, ask them for their informal feedback. So the revisions. We talked about some aspects, but keep in mind the peer review system is completely overloaded. I get about 1 or 2 requests for peer review a day. Now I decline practically all of them. It just tells you what sort of a demand is there. Yeah. We talked about the rules of 5, so I'm not going to go into this anymore, but that's one of the outcomes. The 4 pillars of best practice are another one. Now, an important point is you get to the level of revision. So great news, the manuscript has not been rejected in the first round. Then don't assume it's automatically accepted, but then enter into a dialogue with the editor. That's when the dialogue really starts and the editor and the reviewers are engaging more with the content. Some of them are more open than others, and you just need to find out the right way to communicate. But as I said, your response must be precise, scientific, and specific. General answers don't help. Now, some points on the revisions. As I said, you must provide a detailed point-by-point response to the queries. State specifically what you have changed. Give a page and line number. Of course, you must in many journals now include a marked manuscript. Provide a scientific response. Even if one of the reviewers may not be very polite, say, with all due respect, we disagree with your assessment. Also, this is why. Yeah? Don't start every response. We're very grateful for the valuable comments by the reviewer. Okay, fine, but focus on what needs to be discussed. And then something very important. You can always argue that the reviewer is wrong, but you must justify it. But also, if a reviewer highlights something, it may actually mean something else. It may mean that he or she didn't understand what you were saying. So it may point to something else. Maybe there's something else is wrong somewhere else. If he says the statement on page 5, line 8 is wrong, and you say, no, it's right, then it may be that you need to go back to page 1 and add something there or correct something there, because that's where you misled the reviewer. He didn't get it, so it needs a bit of clarification. And it brings me to this point. Every revision must be for the entire manuscript. Use it as a chance to go over it again with the benefit of time and everything. Now, lots of people think minor revision doesn't need any more work. I'll just do a little things, do what they say. No, minor revision does not mean that the paper will automatically be accepted. Yeah, so if it gets rejected, well, move on, rewrite the paper, and don't get desperate. It happens all the time. There's nothing wrong about it. It's so nice, but that's what it is. And but really, if you want to submit another journal, start the process again, not from scratch, but in terms of editing the entire manuscript. Now, how much time have we left?
About 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's good. Now, ethics. It's an endless topic, but I made that point before. Ethics are global. You have different regulations about some specific aspects. You can do animal experiments, which you cannot do in Europe, or not in America. But the basic ethical principles behind this are the same. And journals are becoming more and more cautious and considerate about ethical views. Ethics is, in fact, a huge area. You have the publication ethics, you have ethics relating to the work with human participants, the right of informants, the right of patients, you have animal experiments, etc., etc. So, ethics are now among those publishers which subscribe to publishing ethics the same. And there are lots of issues which you need to cover. And I will only focus on the green side, because the red is sort of the negative. As I said, there's a scientific ethics. Be honest, be scientifically exact, be self-critical, respect the scientific community and collegiate. There are publication ethics. Be careful when writing, cut and paste, authenticate. Be considerate in the needs of others. Think about also authorship, a very difficult topic, and people can get very heated about these things. And then you need to follow these very specific rules. And as I said, on the right-hand side is sort of the other side. Now, falsification of results is the most serious case we have in terms of misconduct. But most of the time, in the end, it gets detected. These are examples. This is one where an article was virtually identical to another paper, had to be retracted, and the other paper was also, for all practical purposes, no longer accepted. This is an example from Science Direct. And today, this would be unlikely to happen because of the software technique. But here's another one, fabrication of data. It's actually linked to the enormous pressure we are under, in this case the Chinese problem. So here we had the real problems with fabricated data. The data were in no way reproducible. Not because of scientific problems, but simply because they were fabricated. So these are classical examples of problems in this field. The main issue I see is very often the language issue, but also the scientific quality. And maybe after the next exercise, you will take a look at some of the things we are doing in terms of addressing this, trying to help colleagues to improve it. So there's a very nice summary which comes from a guy called Michael Skopuk, the former editor-in-chief of Geology Reviews, and he says what leads to acceptance. Attention to detail, check and double check your work, consider the reviewer's comments, English must be as good as possible, presentation is important, take your time with revision. Don't send it back the next day and say, well, yeah, I've done it all, and nobody's going to believe you. It's a major revision. And acknowledge those who have helped you, new, original, and previously unpublished material, critically evaluate your own manuscript, and the global ethical rules must be obeyed. So that's a little introduction into the whole huge area of how to publish a paper. I hope I've given you a little bit of insight. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions, comments? There was many.
I have some questions. When we start the talks, we discuss about some guidelines about. I would like to inquire whether the articles that are available through the PNC Format Center, they are full-length articles. They are available. Are those articles trustworthy? Trust the PNC? Any article in that?
I think it's changing. PubMax and PMC went through a phase, as many other publishers, where they're rather lenient in acceptance. The whole open access field now is undergoing quite a change. And I think now, I would hope that now we can trust them better than the others. It's not a very satisfactory answer. And I would say in the end, you must check the paper, whether from your assessment as an expert of this topic, it is meaningful or not. Because in the end, we can only provide information on the discussion of this data in a paper. The usage by the community is then something which drives in a very different way. So I wouldn't give a general answer to this one, I'm afraid. Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Sir, you said you need to revise the manuscript. Don't send it right away. So the problem that I face, like when I complete a manuscript, I read it and I revise it, and I keep revising it once or twice. So how do you get the confidence that this is fine and I can send it now? Like after how many revisions you can finally think of sending it to the journals?
I wouldn't be able to tell you because A, it depends on the editor and what they are. Secondly, it depends on what the situation is. Many journals now have a policy that after the second revision they automatically reject. If they are not satisfied with the response, after revision number 2, it's sent back. But this is something which really depends on the specific journal and the specific author. I tend to engage a bit too long with authors, and I may suddenly end up with 7 or 8 revisions, and others very quickly say after the second, I'm stopping. The other part of the question is really about how to deal with it. I think it's not that easy to always understand what reviewers want. We again have an issue with language.
They're
We
quite
have an
unclear.
Sorry?
The comments usually are very unclear.
Yeah.
You cannot really get what they're trying to comment onto.
Yeah.
So that is the.
That's something you need to then check. What can you do and what? If in the end you don't understand it, you have to say, sorry, I don't have a clue. And we all know it. And I go through these comments normally, and then try to give my interpretation. So I can't really go back to the reviewer and say, can you explain what you mean? Or I may even write, please disregard this comment, this is against our editorial policy or something. But that depends a lot on both the paper, the level of complexity of the revisions needed, and how confident I am that it can be resolved. But there is a definite problem with the quality of peer review.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So, most of the people, ResearchGate is a website from where we can get some papers. The authors, they upload the papers. Is it a good habit, or we should upload the papers? What's your take?
It depends. It's absolutely well. Let's put it this way: if I would be speaking for Elsevier, they would say it's okay as long as you have it as your personal copy. It's a copyright issue. I think what ResearchGate does is pretty clever. They started only 15 or 12 years ago, and what they've done up there is quite amazing. It's a huge repository. There are major legal battles between the big publishers and ResearchGate. I don't understand ResearchGate's business model. They are a little bit like a I don't know, amoeba coming up everywhere and sending you too many emails. But for you to promote your work, I think it's a very good idea. There's academia.edu, which is the American equivalent. I have no strong feelings which ones are better. I think academia is more tedious in many ways. They are very clever now in capturing information or capturing articles, so that articles are now automatically included. So I think that's a very good one to do. And I would see no reason why not to do it, as long as you comply with copyright. So yes, by all means do it.
One more question. You just touched the topic about the impact factor. What should we consider to send it to high impact factor, or what is the role of this impact factor?
I am not your vice chancellor, to the best of my knowledge. So you need to discuss this with, or maybe with Munich. Discuss it with your vice chancellor. UCL has a very clear policy, or actually it's a national policy in Great Britain, which is very good, that the impact factor as such is not the determining quality criteria. Quality criteria is the number of citations, and they are normalized to certain fields. like it or hate it, we are all done that. So if you are in pharmacology and toxicology, like we are, a good citation rate would be around 10 citations per year since publication for the first 5 years. It will be 50 after 5 years. But that's obviously different if you are in pharmaceutics versus neuropharmacology. So it's a very problematic field in this regard. So in terms of your research performance, I think the impact factor is rubbish. In terms of deciding how good a journal is, because there the focus is actually on the journal. When you can publish an article in Lancet and it's never cited. You can publish an article in a tiny little journal and it's cited 100 times. Now your publication strategy may have been wrong at that time, but if it's so interesting and important, you can decide. And that's why your personal citations are relevant in order to assess the journal. The impact factor makes perfect sense as a rough estimate, as long as you keep in mind it's depending, it depends on what field you are in. It's different neuropharmacology versus drug delivery, for example. The other thing is that the impact factor, as we know it today, I think is more and more being superseded by a much more complex way of analyzing. There's the whole research environment, extra attention, the media, etc. So citations are just one of the criteria to use today. If you look at some of the online publishers, what they now provide you information about media attention to articles, etc. It is quite amazing how much is going on. So I think it's much more complex today in terms of what is done there than just. I think we talk too much. In one sentence, we should not talk too much about impact factor. As scientists, we have become too obsessed with it. Mind you. Right.
I have two questions, Professor. For question number one, you have already explained, but as my students ask it again and again, I will ask you once again. That how we can fasten or accelerate the peer review process? Because sometimes it takes more than 1 year, 1.5 years. And is there any way that an author gets the result whether this manuscript is number two? Normally it is asked the suggested reviewers. How important it is? Is the editor choose the reviewer from the list? Or how often it is used?
Question number 2 is impossible to answer because it's an editor's decision.
Okay.
But I would normally, if you suggest 4, and I have the feeling, well, it doesn't quite sound right. That sounds to me too much like buddy culture. I wouldn't do it. If I have the feeling, yeah, that sounds like a logical method, I'll try it together with at least one of the other. Sometimes I use the suggested ones as a sort of third reviewer. Yeah. And the first question was about what?
Time of
Oh, what type of peer review? Well, one thing is, what I'm trying to do here, improve the quality of what you submit in first.
Yeah.
In terms of the clock system, I seriously don't know what we are going to do in the long run. In Frontiers, we now have a very clever system of flagging manuscripts. So if there's a problem with the time frame, I get an automated message, and that's then my role to figure out a way to resolve it. So I can step in and activate the response by the authors. I can reject the manuscript. I can't quite accept it, but I can nearly accept it. So that's one way. But in the end, again, it depends a lot on the editor, how engaged she or he is. It depends on how willing the reviewers are to respond and how good the quality of the review is. So the best way to achieve this if all Indian universities would volunteer to have 10 reviewers to be active in the field of ethnopharmacology. Then we can send many more manuscripts out. We have a problem in terms of the lack of qualified and theory. And that's not easy to overcome. I think the implementation of fast track systems makes perfect sense, because once it's in the system and moving on, it hopefully will go through that. Then the 50-50 hit rate whether it's accepted or rejected. But that's why the early checks are so important and it really help a lot in pushing it.
Since it is a voluntary, totally voluntary process, most of the reviewers are already they are very busy. And there are so many requests. It's possible to get the call. If one paper has to review, it takes one or 2 days even to review it completely and send the comments. And I will suggest to you as a editor, can it be possible that you send some sort of certificate to the reviewer that it is you have reviewed this process and we acknowledge the listener contribution, number one. Number two, will it be possible if some sort of appreciation in monetary in terms of return open access, let's say it may be a little one or just $10, $20, something means there should be some attraction for the reviewer. We don't spend so much time. I think it will work, something it will work.
Since I am not the CEO of Elsevier, I will have a hard time to answer the first one of these two. I agree, peer review is a weird thing. We are doing it without being paid.
Yes.
My university actually argues peer review is against what we should be doing as academics. It makes no sense because we need peer reviewers, but the argument is we're actually using university time, and therefore the university pays for it, not you in your time, but the university. You're right. There is a fundamental flaw in this. Now, you have access to Scopus, you mentioned this. For many, that is a benefit. It's not a benefit for us because we have access anyway. But recognition of reviewers is something lots of journals do, but very often they do it only after you have done a certain number of reviews.
Yes.
So, Elsevier for some time had this comment on most proactive peer reviewer, etc. And they send out a little present, whatever it was. I think it was a ball pen, a very nice ball pen, and a certificate which you can hang on the wall. So they are trying. They are published in the journal. So there are some ways of doing it.
On general, it says if you do 10 papers, the next paper will be 50% waived or something like that. They will say.
Yeah. But the underlying costs, actually one of the interesting things is the underlying costs of the open access publishing are increasing dramatically because they now finally must do much more in terms of streaming. And that is a cost implication. So, I think the good thing about the current state of open access, we have come away from this idea that open access means automatic acceptance. And I know a few years ago I had a colleague who was running an open access journal and still does, and he was got himself into trouble with his publisher, commercial publisher, because he had a rejection rate of over 10%. That's no longer a discussion, and the rejection rate should not be a criteria. It must always be the quality. Right.
Any other question?
So, if not, after I want to assume there's a break, you'll get an absolute rubbish abstract written by me, and I will ask you to get it into a decent format. It's on Hypericum preparatum and some chemistry and quality control we did. So, do we have the copies already?
Yes.
Okay. So, how do you want to? Over to you, Munish. I think I will let you organize this.
Okay. We will have a break like one. We will have a break. I will distribute this 2 pages. Everybody. you have to correct it after hour or so. You want to listen to some, okay? Thank you very much for the wonderful
All the participants are requested to come near to the dais for a group photograph.